what fandom is now is about expression, right? What it's kind of always been is about expression, but instead of wearing the patches on your jackets, now the patches are how you best explode yourself onto the internet, right? Those are the patches on the jackets. And they're immovable patches. Those patches cannot be moved off of any person's passions, right? If you are, I mean, we're seeing this right now with Kanye West very heavily, right? If you were a Kanye West fan when College Dropout came out and you rode that wave really aggressively, then I think there are people who are like, well, I have to be here now. I have to still be here with this, which, to place the self, right, above any passion or any fandom is to continually make artists earn your affection, right? I loved Kanye West once and then hit a point where I said, well, I need Kanye West to earn my love again.
To the Harbor Grace excursion with the voice to have.
Books really saved my life.
Cool. Hey. It's really good to read in Toronto. I haven't ever read here, but this is the second time in my life that I've done a reading in a place where The Weeknd has filmed a music video. Which is a fun fact about me. I'm gonna try to check the other places off the list soon. Although a lot of the landscapes are very hellish and dark, and I don't know if I want to immerse myself in that. Let's start from the top. Who knows, you can yell it out and I don't care. Who knows the first A Tribe Called Quest single to hit the radio? This happens every time. I feel like people know. The thing that I think the critical conversation has to revolve around is that it's okay to be wrong, but you're probably not wrong. Shout it out. I left my wallet in El Segundo. I admit, I lost my wallet in another city one time, and I did turn back to get it in West Texas, leaving Odessa after reading the book Friday Night Lights in some late teen haze and insisting that I must see the town. The thing about Odessa, Texas is that it is really a desert. I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing else there, but I am saying that at one time the town became rich from oil and then the oil left, so you can maybe imagine what I mean when I say there is a big sky and a lot of land with nothing on it below. They say that's beauty, though, a kind of America that can make someone feel like the wide open spaces are calling them and all that. That is, when not factoring in the people, some of whom wave Confederate flags on their porches or glare ominously at an unfamiliar black face in a gas station when the person who owns the face puts their wallet on the counter with a bottle of M&M or with a bottle of sweet tea and a pack of peanut M&Ms, and then gets the hell out of town before anyone else gets too suspicious. And who is to say, really, why I drove to Odessa, except for the fact that it was summer, and I had nothing better to do, and I sure didn't have a job or much money except for gas and the occasional road trip snacks, and I wanted to get the hell out of my town, and anywhere would have done. Like Q-Tip in his own story, I had the space and freedom and 4 wheels and a map that pointed me to a place I'd heard of and only imagined. And the thing about road trips is that nothing at the end of the journey can live up to the anticipation of the unseen once we arrive there. And so, in my haste to get out of Odessa, I drove an hour or two and reached into my pocket when passing the first fast food sign I'd seen in miles. And I wish Q-Tip would have gone on to describe the feeling that hits you when you realize you've lost your wallet or some other precious thing, the way shock begins in your legs and carves the home in your stomach for a while before even getting to the part of your brain that asks the "what do I do now?" question. And I knew I'd left it in the gas station. And I knew I'd left the gas station in too much of a hurry, because once you've seen a harsh look in one too many small towns, you start to get a feeling for what might be on the other end of that look if you stick around too long. And yet, I did a complete U-turn, kicking up sand and dust as I sped back to the gas station where my wallet was most certainly waiting for me, and the person behind the counter handed it back without a word, and I got in my old car and headed back east, and the muffler on that car was so loud, but instead of getting it fixed, I just got a louder stereo, and I fingered the leather seams of my newly retrieved wallet, and I laughed at the absurdity of it all, and then I remembered there's a song for this. A thing I think about a lot is how there are many versions of the millennial. A thing, like I'm from the States and there's a large political divide there, and the thing that really misguided, quote unquote, well-meaning people say is that, well, there are two Americas, but really there are like several Americas rumbling underneath those two Americas. And sometimes there's like no Americas. The crumbling is the thing. And much like people say, well, there are the millennials, there are many different millennials. There are the millennials who like killed Red Lobster, or the millennials who like killed the wedding industry, or the starfish, or whatever the fuck. And then there are the millennials who know what it is to have to rewind a cassette tape. Or to like, yeah, I'm firmly in that range. Unfortunately, perhaps. But despite the fragility of the cassette, when I was young, I appreciated what it demanded from a listener. A cassette locks a listener into a commitment, particularly in the mid to late 1990s when rap albums were sprawling, overrun with skits and Easter eggs. To skip a song could also mean you'd miss something. On Wu-Tang's 1993 Into the Wu-Tang, for example, one would be wrong to pass over the skit before the song Method Man, where Meth and Raekwon playfully spar over excruciating acts of torture. Or in 1999, before MF Doom's Hands of Doom, where two graffiti artists discuss Doom as a character, building out the ethos of both artist and persona in a few lines. Or any of the children's storybook skits that litter the 1991 De La Soul album, De La Soul is Dead, creating a narrative around a young kid finding a De La Soul album in the garbage, only to have it stolen from him by bullies who listen to and critique the tape as the album unfolds, ending with them putting the album back in the same trash can where it was first found. The value of the tape was also the crafting of the mixtape. I am from an era where we learned not to waste songs. If you are creating a cassette that you must listen to all the way through, and you are crafting it with your own hands and your own ideas, then it is on you to not waste sounds and to structure a tape with feeling. No skippable songs meant that I wouldn't have to take my thick gloves off during the chill of a Midwest winter to hit fast forward on a Walkman, hoping that I would stop a song just in time. No skippable songs meant that when the older, cooler kids on my bus ride to school asked what I was listening to in my headphones, armed with an onslaught of jokes if my shit wasn't on point, I could hand my headphones over, give them a brief listen of something that would pass quality control, and keep myself safe from humiliation for another day. The trick was recording from CD to cassette. Recording from cassette to cassette was an option, but only for the desperate, because the sound quality in that transfer would drop significantly. A funny thing about this portion of the book is that it was like much longer and more elaborate about like recording CDs onto tapes, and my publisher was like, or my editor was kind of like, hey, do you want to consider like trimming that because you're describing an illegal activity in great detail. And you know what I mean? It's like a thing I don't even think about anymore, the fact that I used to like get CDs from the library and like record them onto tapes and then keep those tapes. You know what I mean? But my editor was like, yo, that is wild illegal, fam. And I was like, you don't say. But if you had a good CD recorder, as we did in my house, You could set your tape to record songs straight from a compact disc, which not only improved sound quality, but made for fewer abrupt stops in the process of recording. I would get CDs from the library near my house, which allowed you to take out 5 at a time in 7-day bursts. If you were particularly strapped for time or feeling especially confident about an artist or a group, you might just set the CD to record for the entire length of it, copying a whole album's worth of songs and then sorting them out later. When Beats, Rhymes, and Life came out, for example, I remember recording it all the way through. By that time, Tribe had earned a type of currency that engendered that kind of trust. It was assumed any album with their name on it would surely be worth its weight in gold, with no outright skippable songs. On each of their previous albums, even the less than great songs managed to be tolerable. That trust fell apart on Beats, Rhymes, and Life, which doesn't mean the album was bad so much as it means the album could not live up to the impossible standards of my own imagination. It sat in my Walkman during the winter of 1996, and I would pull my fingers out of gloves and rush to fast forward what I could before the wind forced my hands back to the warmth they craved, and then I just stopped listening to it altogether. I'm going to read one more thing from the book. Well, I was going to read some things not from the book, like maybe 1 or 2, if that's okay. I have my new book of poems comes out in November, and I was going to read a thing from that about pizza, and perhaps about dogs. A lot of fully clothed dogs here this afternoon, by the way. Which isn't a complaint, just an observation, like full-on, several layered outfits. I saw a dog that was wearing like a shirt and a coat and shoes. And I was like, good for you. I lived in Connecticut for, I don't know, is anyone here from Connecticut? Oh. Oh no. Well, I did not enjoy my stint of living in Connecticut, but Connecticut was widely known for having pizza. And one night, because of I think winter weather or something, pizza place in Connecticut ran out of cheese, kind of like universally. And I lived above one of those pizza places, and the pizza owner at that place was doing this bullshit where he would just put crust and sauce on the joint and close the box and hand it to somebody. And this is about the one woman who was not having that. And by the one woman who was not having that, I in some ways mean my ex, because this is also about my relationship falling apart. From the humid brick building below my humid brick building, a woman bellows at the pizza man who, it seems, threw no cheese atop the crust in its red river of sauce because, as he shouts above the sirens of State Street and the growing crowd lined outside his shop, it is Friday night, and he is woefully short on mozzarella, and there are far better pizza options on every corner of this city, overpriced and tonight bursting at the seams with lonely people who will seek the warmth spilling from the edges of a cardboard box and onto their laps and into their fingers on the walk back to a newly empty apartment. I love the heat for how it separates the desire for touch from the practicality of it. If it gets too hot to fuck, like it did for Mookie and Tina, then we're all on our own sinking islands anyway. There is no cheese in this town anymore. And what could be worse than the fraction of a dream behind every door you crawl to? It is Friday, and surely some of my people are praising the fresh coin in their bank accounts. And what a tragedy to spend it on a half-finished freedom. And the argument below has poured out onto the streets and into the waiting masses, and I imagine that this is no longer over cheese, but over every mode of unfulfilled promise. The cluster of sins still stuck to a body fresh from the waters of baptism, the parent who must dig a grave for their youngest child. From below, a man yells, "There are only 3 ingredients." You can't even get that right. And isn't it funny to vow you will love someone until you are dead? Here's a poem about dogs that I'm going to read because I think this event was titled after a line from it. What's weird is that a lot of people really like this poem, and that means a lot to me, but I did not like it for a very long time. Like when I submitted it, I don't know if there are any poets in the room, but like when you submit poems, like you submit 3 or 4 that you think are probably gonna be picked up, and then sometimes you just throw some bullshit in to like bulk up the packet. And I did that with this poem, and then like within 15 minutes, the editor emailed back like, I want the dog poem. And then it like got published and had this really interesting moment. But I love it now, I guess. This poem is called For the Dogs Who Barked at Me on the Sidewalks in Connecticut. Darlings, if your owners say you are not usually like this, then I must take them at their word. I am like you, not crazy about that which towers before me, particularly the buildings here and the people inside who look at my name and make noises that seem like growling. My small and eager darlings, what it must be like to have the sound for love and the sound for fear be a matter of pitch. I am afraid to touch anyone who might stay long enough to make leaving an echo. There's a difference between burying a thing you love for the sake of returning and leaving a fresh absence in a city's dirt, looking for a mercy left by someone who came before you. I am saying that I, too, am at a loss for language. Can't beg myself a doorway out of anyone. I am not usually like this either. I must apologize again for how adulthood has rendered me, us really. I know you all forget the touch of someone who loves you in 2 minutes, and I arrive to you a constellation of shadows, once hands. Listen, darlings, there's a sky to be pulled down into our bowls. There's a sweetness for us to push our faces into. I promise I will not beg for you to stay this time. I will leave you to your wild galloping. I am sorry to hold you again for so long. I am in the mood to be forgotten. My group of pals in high school were cooler than I was, by definition. They were good at basketball, and I was just okay. They played football, and I watched from the stands. You know what's funny about that is in high school, I actually kicked for the football team, but for some reason, I was like so ashamed to insert that into the book that I was like, that never happened. It's that whole thing about like, in They Can't Kill Us, I write about how sometimes it's better to be the like punk kid who's not in the band, because then you can like be cool on the sidelines without embarrassing yourself on stage. I think it's the same with organized sports. Anyway, still, we were cool because at heart they were close to what I was, a music nerd who loved ripping CDs from our computers and selling them in our school hallways for $5 a pop, less than what anyone could cop a CD of new music from at the store with on release Tuesday. And I was cool enough, sure, but not most popular, not by a long shot. Them hanging out with me did more for me than it did for them, at least in terms of reputation and how I could move through the treacherous world of high school. But we had our bonds, staying in on Friday nights and eating pizza while talking about rap, going to sporting events and sharing notes on girls in our class. It was the simplest of things that tethered us, but those echoed the loudest. It didn't matter that their parents had the money to buy them expensive gear and sneakers, and that I had to work to keep up, sometimes sacrificing gas money or lunch, the things we do to stay close to the people we think will carry us through an entire lifetime. We all decided to go to the same college, right in the city where we knew and loved each other first. In college, something shifted as things often do. Because I was one of the few black kids at the college, and because of people's fascination with that, I became of significantly more interest than I was in high school. Some of it was desired, and much of it not, in retrospect, but at the time, it all felt good, or it all felt worthwhile. It felt like I was finally achieving the popularity I'd watched my friends revel in during our high school years. Now, to hang with me was a prize, and they were reaching for it. Them spending time with me, or being seen with me, was now more valuable. I would sacrifice plans to spend time with them in their dorm rooms until I decided not to do that anymore, until it seemed like too big of a burden for me to bear at this new and big school with seemingly new and endless opportunities for friendship. Eventually, we stopped talking altogether. I saw one of them recently in a city where neither of us lived, moving through a hotel lobby. We embraced stiffly. We mentioned something about keeping in touch in a way that didn't seem true. And I think often about love strictly as a matter of perspective. For some, it is something they are receiving from someone else they might be slowly draining the life from. Thank you.
I'm so excited and so honored to be here to talk about a group of artists who, individually were so significant, and then when you put them together, they all reached the sublime. I'm talking, of course, about the group led by the ringleader, the soundtrack of The Greatest Showman.
Yes.
Yes.
In my head, I was like, I hope he doesn't say a Tribe Called Quest. Do you really want to talk about the soundtrack to The Greatest Showman?
Do you? Let's do it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part?
So one, I think The Greatest
Are
Showman.
we doing this, really?
P.T.
Okay.
Barnum's pretty bad. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yes.
Not even a problematic fave, fuck P.T. Barnum. However,
the movie.
The bops, you know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks, for sure.
I can't deny him. And the movie's bad too, I think.
No.
The movie's also...
I'm into it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of The Greatest Showman soundtrack is the end of the song The Greatest Show, when you get the Zendaya and Zac Efron harmonizing, because it dawned on me that those are two. My friend would be embarrassed if I told this story, but I'm gonna tell it here since we're all friends. I went to go see that movie with a friend of mine, and there's a part in the movie where Zendaya and Zac Efron harmonize at the end of The Greatest Show, and they're touching each other's faces and whatever. And I look over at her, and she's sobbing. And
that's the first song.
Yeah.
Literally the first song.
And it's the first and last song.
Okay.
And she's sobbing, and I was oh. And she was don't look at me. And then as we're leaving the theater, she was those are just two Disney stars from two different eras. And I was oh, it makes sense. So now I have such a soft spot in my heart for that moment.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually planning on talking about The Greatest
Oh,
Showman.
I'm sorry.
No, but I'm totally.
What's your favorite song?
From Now On.
Oh,
the drum break in From Now On. We could totally talk about this for hours. I swear to God. Because I don't think Pasek and Paul are good at writing musicals.
No.
I think they're really good at writing songs that just inject themselves into your veins.
Right.
You don't it's a little bit like heroin, and I've never done heroin.
They're Linda Perry.
I have to imagine that's what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, I got water on me. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry for those of you watching me on a large screen who just watched me spill water on myself. Did you listen to The Greatest Showman Reimagined?
I did. What's your favorite one?
My favorite one is the
We're
Craig
doing
David thing, because I love. Shout out Craig David. I don't know if anyone here is Craig David hive, but I'm the president, so.
Your feet are on the desk. That's what happens.
My least favorite is all due respect to. I'm going to say this, and Panic at the Disco fans are mad at me all the time. Panic at the Disco fans.
You're going to drag Brendon Urie on this stage?
He's not Canadian. He's from fucking Las Vegas. I did not enjoy the Brendon Urie.
That's fair.
I just think this era of Brendon Urie is really interesting because he's kind of just I think that he thinks he's doing one thing, but he's really just kind of a lounge act. He's like Rod Stewart.
But a really fun lounge act.
Yeah, he's a really fun Rod Stewart. But I think he thinks he's a virtuoso. I can't tweet it because Panic at the Disco fans get so angry.
That's fair. My favorite one from the Reimagined is a T.Y. $. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
The duet?
Yeah.
Who's with Max?
Yes.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like it would fit.
They made the song better than it was in the original.
Yeah, because I think sorry that everyone has to witness this happening.
The Greatest Showman is not a movie I'd recommend to you.
Yeah.
So we're just here talking about it for a few minutes. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Danielle. You're I can tell that you're holding on what is what is happening?
You didn't plan on this, did you? Okay, now let's talk about Tribe.
Yes.
Now that we're done with that beginning. Tell me a little bit about why Tribe. I think we could be on this stage talking about De La Soul, you mentioned it, or Leaders of the New School. You don't have letters in here to Busta Rhymes. It's not funny, Busta Rhymes is great. But
what happened to Busta Rhymes?
Yeah, I heard you.
Is Busta Rhymes' arch nemesis in the audience? That Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, no, he's dope. But we're here to talk about Tribe. What is it about?
So I wanted to. In some ways, this book is about all those people, right?
Yeah.
It isn't a direct. addressed to those people, but in some ways, it is about the ecosystem that allowed tribe to thrive, which was held up by all of those people. I, by definition of my work, which is a quote-unquote cultural critic, which I don't know what that means, but that's on my bio, I find myself writing a lot of eulogies, right? If a musician dies, it's like, hey, will you write this thing? I think because to truly love a musician, at least for me, is to have already imagined and mourned the world without them in it, right? And so that allows for, people are often like, well, how did you write that eulogy so quick? And it's like, well, because I've written it already.
Right.
I've written the thing. So when Fife died, I was working at well, it's not defunct, but might as well be, the now defunct in my mind MTV News. And
Wow. Drag them, but anyway, yes.
And Fife died, and my editor, who also edited this book, the great Jessica Hopper, was kind of like, will you write a thing for Fife? Will you write an obituary for Fife and a memoriam thing? And I did in like 30 minutes or so. And she's like, well, how did you do that so fast? And it dawned on me that I had already kind of imagined what the world would be like if I did not have access to a Tribe Called Quest, right?
Right.
I think, and because I'm a poet, I think, the eulogy is often something that is only presented to someone in death, but I think to eulogize the past while honoring someone is also a different type of that form, and I wanted to give at least the living members of tribes some kind of access to their roses while they were still here, and they were just a group that was massively important to me, right? So I wanted to do that and not say, I think all the time about musicians I love who are potentially on the verge of not being alive much longer, and like I think about Loretta Lynn all the time, and how there's been not like a lot of great. Thanks, one Loretta Lynn fan.
Yeah.
Thank you, coal miner hive. And yeah, so I think all the time about how to.
You need a minute. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I think all the time about how unfair it is that all of these acts that I love, this is like sounds dramatic, but it's not. I have not watched the Bruce Springsteen. No artist is more important to me than Bruce Springsteen. I haven't been able to watch the Bruce Springsteen on Broadway because it dawns on me that this is the beginning of Bruce Springsteen kind of writing his own ending, right? There's no other explanation for, I'm sure the money was good too, but beyond that, right, to strip yourself of instrumentation and to tell a singular story in a quiet theater is it's how this begins, right? And I don't want to be a party to that, I think. I've wept just thinking about it, and so I wanted to pour some of that into this book for a living group.
Okay, I love that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the beginning of this book because, conceiving of this book and then thinking about, you want to write a book about tribe, but then you begin with slavery and you begin with.
Doesn't it all?
Yes, it does. And a meditation on percussion, a meditation on jazz. Then we land on you trying to play the trumpet, but badly.
Yeah.
Take us through how that is the beginning of your tribe journey.
Well, I didn't want to start with slavery.
Okay.
But neither did the slaves, in some ways, I did not make the decision to start with slavery. The first time I got I did a read on this, the person was like, well, why did you start with slavery? And I was like, you're asking the wrong person. And all jokes aside, because the American institution of music is founded in part or largely on sounds by black musicians, right? And yet, there's still these binary conversations about what quote-unquote white music is and what black music is, and that just doesn't serve anyone. And it isn't very interesting to me. And so I wanted to attach a type of history to sound as I understood it, right? And sound how it began, which was the body, right? The body made the first sounds. People clapped hands or slapped tables or slapped their chests. The percussive elements of sound are how people got by and were freeing to people, right? And percussion was dangerous, right? I talk in the book about how slaves had their instruments taken away, and so the body became the only instrument you had. And also to add weight to the fact that when I was bad at the instrument I decided to take on, it broke the hearts of people I loved, right? Black people who didn't have access to instruments once, or come from people who had their instruments taken away, watching their ancestor, this young boy, be bad at an instrument. You know, like I was trying to create a lineage and understanding that I wanted to set the tone very early on and say, like, this isn't a book just about music, but that's because music is not just about music, right? It's a failure of the imagination to think that every instance of listening to music has to be just music. Granted, some are. Like when I'm at the gym listening to like Gunna, I'm not necessarily trying to chart threads through like the American like history of chattel slavery.
You sure?
Yeah, but you know, I wanted to add some weight to it. I feel like it's rude that my feet are up, so I'm gonna put them down.
Nobody cares.
But I just wanted to stretch my legs. I was like, I'm getting old, and to read, I don't know.
The same sort of lineage thread is the same one that you weave. You're playing excursions at home.
Yeah.
And you're like, look, Dad, this has, you know, like throwbacks to the stuff that you grew up listening to. So, you know, there's something about the way that you write about sampling as an act and a labor of love, of digging through history for something that's salvageable and repackaged. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I get so excited about sampling. Because I get that, like, so on the internet now there's Who Sampled, where you can just like type in a song and find out where it's from, and that's great. I don't want to like shake my fist at the internet because I use Who Sampled a lot. But when I was a kid, I was a liner notes reader. I don't know if anyone else who grew up loving music was a liner notes reader. And so, and my brother had cassettes, right? Not CDs and not records. They're not all records. My parents had records. My brother and sister, who were the music collectors. I'm the youngest of four, and I think to be a youngest sibling and have older siblings who love music and are kind of like funneling music to you, even unintentionally. You know, so I would read the liner notes of cassettes, which was a task because you'd have to like unfurl them and like get a magnifying glass, you know. And the most exciting thing was, or two things, to see the thank yous and to read all the sample credits.
Why? Why the thank yous?
Because I was coming from a dual fork generational listening experience, right? So my parents would sometimes play the records that the musicians I listened to were sampling, right? Yeah. And so I could do things like, oh wow, this sampled that Celia Cruz record. I can go downstairs and dig in my mom's crate to that Celia Cruz record and try to put that song on. It was a very, I think of sampling as a rigorous labor of affection, because for me to hear a sample and then go find it took work, right? It took a lot of work for me at the time that it doesn't take now. Now it's kind of just like, well, you know, I can just type this into YouTube. And because of how sampling laws are set up back then, it was so much harder to hear a sample because one song could have 17 samples in it. I mean, there are Tribe Called Quest songs that have 20 samples. And so you're not even hearing, you know, you have to lie to yourself and be like, oh yeah, I hear the guitar there, when it's like, you're not hearing that at all, right? I think once sample laws changed, it got so much easier to identify. Like everyone, if you hear More Money, More Problems, you're like, oh, okay, well, like, yeah, I've heard I'm coming out, you know what I mean? Like, but when you look at a song like Excursions or a lot of the low-end shit, you know, you're digging for the samples and then finding some satisfaction when you arrive to them, and there's some excitement in that for me.
Now, this book has a lot of restraint in it. I think, you know, when I think of Tribe, I want to get really bombastic about it, get really excited. But you are constantly sort of tethering your writing to the personal. You know, instead of being like, without Tribe, there would be no Common. Without Common, there'd be no Kanye. Without Kanye, there'd be no Drake. Without Drake, there'd be no Toronto. I don't. Like you know, you never. That was a joke. Jeez.
I like how everyone was really tentative.
Yeah, everyone was like, no, I don't know about that. No, fair. Neither do I. But instead of getting, you know, that sort of bombastic, you keep it at this personal level.
Yeah.
So you're not like this is not a biography of the group, right?
No.
It's much more than that. So
I wanted to zoom out of the
right.
I think to write a authoritative biography on a group, you have to have a lot of access and a lot of time. I could have gotten both of those things, but didn't seem that interesting for me, especially because Fife is dead. Even though I love and appreciate him, so much of the group's narrative has been funneled through the lens of Q-Tip for as long as the group has been a group, right? The group's narrative, the group's creative direction, everything has been funneled through the lens of Q-Tip. And I didn't know if it would really serve a book to be funneled through the lens of Q-Tip, as great as I think he is. Also, I didn't want to position myself as an authority because I really wanted to adjust the conversation around fandom, right? Really, this is a book about fandom to me and about the many ways that the fandom has to be tethered to the personal in a way that is not infallible, right? I wanted to recognize things I did not love about Tribe while also recognizing things I don't love about myself. The big problem, I think, with this current iteration, well, no, it's not current, it's always been this way. I think we see it more perhaps because of the internet. But when fandom becomes so personal and a person immerses themselves so much in the personal aspects of it, that means to critique a work is to also critique the self.
Right.
And that's maybe not useful. Right? Because it creates both the uncritiquable artist and it creates a weird line of shame around challenging the uncritiquable artist, right? Or not loving something that many people seem to love. And so when liking something becomes a personality, that means by default not liking something becomes a personality, and that doesn't serve artist or creation.
I do think there's something about this moment of 2019 and fandom culture, stan culture, particularly on the internet.
Yeah, shout out to stans everywhere.
Whatever
Really.
you stan, I stan.
Like honestly,
it's good.
I know I just said all that shit, but I'm I stand several things.
Like The Greatest Showman.
Like The Greatest, I'm a stan. Like Greatest Showman stands. What's up?
But isn't that kind of what room do we leave for critique if we're so immersed into this stan culture? Like there are people in this room who would probably murder me if I said anything bad about Beyonce. And I would never do that because I don't want to take my life into my hands. But that's what it means to be immersed in the stan culture all the time. Everything is always sort of the greatest in 2019.
Right. Yeah, I think the problem is that we're at this kind of thing where the stan culture has kind of intersected with the very cultural obsession with binaries, right? For instance, I was recently not recently, this could have been like a year ago, but I returned to it all the time because it was the most fascinating thing for me. I was doing a thing at a college recently, semi-recently, whatever the fuck.
At some point in time.
Yeah, and whenever like a college student asks me during the Q&A about J. Cole, I already know why, right? I know whenever anyone like under 21 is like, do you like J. Cole? I know they're not like asking me, they're like trying to tell me they love J. Cole. Because J. Cole is just like a very, which isn't, I don't know, we can talk about that forever. I don't think it's necessarily his fault, but I think there is something about J. Cole that sparks a very unique affection in people who have taken like one really intense Black Studies class.
Look, he does it all.
Yeah, it's like, man, J. Cole is just so deep. You know, he's really, like all these other rappers are rapping about like, as if J. Cole, I don't know. People like J. Cole is so deep, and I just keep remembering that song where he like very awkwardly details losing his virginity. And I was like, yeah, J. Cole, right? Yeah. But nonetheless, this dude was like, do you like J. Cole? And I said, oh, I think he's pretty good. And his response was, oh, you don't like him? But I also think that's not an abnormal thing, right? Because what fandom is now is about expression, right? What it's kind of always been is about expression, but instead of wearing the patches on your jackets, now the patches are how you best explode yourself onto the internet, right? Those are the patches on the jackets. And they're immovable patches. Those patches cannot be moved off of any person's passions, right? If you are, we're seeing this right now with Kanye West very heavily, right? If you were a Kanye West fan when College Dropout came out and you rode that wave really aggressively, then I think there are people who are like, well, I have to be here now. I have to still be here with this, which to place yourself to place the self, right, above any passion or any fandom is to continually make artists earn your affection, right? I loved Kanye West once, and then hit a point where I said, well, I need Kanye West to earn my love again. Right? The problem when you call someone a genius and you don't make them repeatedly show that they're interested in living up to that title is that anything goes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so
When did Kanye begin to fail you?
fail me? Well, I don't know. You know, I think.
But also, that's fandom culture. Being like, how did he personally?
Yeah,
fail
you know what I mean. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, I don't think he personally failed me. Like, I am so exhausted by and uninterested in Kanye West just because it's not exciting or new. Like, I think what we're witnessing is a narcissist becoming the final form of himself, right? This is just like kind of what was always on the, I thought it was very odd when people were surprised that Kanye West was at least performing some support of Donald Trump, right? It's the most logical conclusion. And so, you know, I don't feel personally failed. I do think that I would love if, you know, I would love it if it seemed like he enjoyed making music still. Whether or not I liked the music, I would love it if it didn't seem rigorous and frantic and trying to, like, balance a lot of things at once.
That's fair.
Yeah.
We're gonna just sit in this Kanye silence for a minute.
Yeah.
That's for all of you who still like him.
But I mean, I lived through, you know, I think I tell people all the time is I lived through, not that I'm ancient, not like I was there, but I mean, like a lot of people in this room, I lived through the first 3 albums, you know, and I think those first 3 Kanye West albums felt, not only are they singularly great, but they felt so effortless. And I try to express that to people, like, by the time Graduation came out, Graduation to me, Can't Tell Me Nothing is an impossible song. Like, I think no one else could have made that song. The way that the Jeezy sample of the song like turns on that reel, and it felt like he could have made that in his sleep. You know what I mean? By the time he hit Graduation, he was functioning at a level that for me felt impossible. And I think all good artists have this, right? For Tribe, it was definitely the space between Low End and Midnight Marauders. Everyone laughs now because he's like a laughingstock. I once gave this like talk about Justin Timberlake and about how like, yo, like, I get that he's ridiculous on several levels, but I was alive during the like Future Sex Love Sounds era, and that motherfucker was like sleepwalking through a lot of excellence. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like he could have done that era. I mean, that era was so big for him that he had the audacity to like diss Prince. You know what I mean? Like, he thought that was, and so I think for Kanye, those first 3 albums were that for him, where it was just like, I think that I never wanted Kanye's albums or music to feel like work. And the minute they began to feel like work, I felt less engaged with them, even, and that's my fault. Like, that's not a failure of him. That's my fault. Even if the work was great. I think Dark Twisted Fantasy is maybe his masterpiece, but because it feels so rigorous and there's so much labor behind the songs, you can tell. Even if you know nothing about the making of that album, it's just like draining.
And if you know even a little bit, it's like so much crazy amount of work.
And so I think, you know, we want our artists to do impossible things and make those impossible things look easy, and that's maybe unfair to everyone.
I'm curious about how you write. How do I put this? I think like if you didn't have a paper and a pen in front of you the first time that you listened to, you know, Low End Theory, you were like, man, I really like the Ninja Turtles, and also this album is amazing. So how do you, when you begin to write about something that ends up being so significant to you, how do you go back to begin to mine those initial memories and impressions and capture that?
I was excited. I'm glad you asked this. I was excited about the research aspect of this book because so much of the research aspect of this book was, in fact, just confirming that my memories were my memories, right? Yes, there was also like rigorous research around like, did Q-Tip really say this thing once? Or did Fife actually have a little, you know, like I had to dig for historical things, but so much of the research was, you know, I remembered so vividly watching Chi Ali freestyle on Rap City, on UMTV Raps. I remembered it so clearly because Chi Ali, I don't know if anyone here was like fucking with the native tongues real heavy, but Chi Ali was like the kid. Chi Ali was like 13, 14, had a very tragic career arc after his very brief stint in the native tongues. But Chi Ali was like a young kid, And I remember being super young and watching him like sitting on the floor when I should have been in bed. You know, I snuck out of bed to watch you on TV Raps, and Chi Ali had this freestyle. And I remember seeing it so clearly. I can remember what the floor felt like. I can remember listening with one ear for the movement of my parents in their bedroom upstairs. I remember all of these tactile things. And so much of the research was reaffirming the fact that I had not imagined these really beautiful, singular things that had happened to me in my childhood,
Right.
or that I did not imagine these really touchable moments that this music was tied to, you know? And that was exciting for me. It was exciting for me to like feel affirmed each time I went, because I didn't have anything to archive those moments, right? I wasn't, as a child, thinking I was gonna write a book about A Tribe Called Quest.
Right.
I wasn't, as a child, thinking I was gonna write anything.
You're like, in
right.
30 years I will.
Yeah. And so much of this was recounting my own memories and allowing a new space for those memories to breathe and flourish in hopes that my recounting those memories might trigger memories for someone else.
Right. Now, one thing I find interesting about your writing versus your social media is like, look, online and in person a little bit, like, you're a pretty cynical guy.
I'm very, unfortunately.
But then, but
Sad to
listen,
say.
but then we contrast this with this book. Like, there isn't, you know, like the whole thing is incredibly earnest and sincere and
Yeah.
vulnerable. So how do you transition between these two spaces?
Well, I think, and I know that this is me trying to, my therapist would say that I'm trying to defend my cynicism. I think,
are you?
in some way, I think cynicism relies on sincerity. I think sincerity is a healthy and high form of cynicism. The other day, I was like at a school, and the thing I get asked, because I think I am just very default cynical, and so the thing, I'm gonna keep it real. The thing that white people always ask me is, what do you, you know how like, you know how Dave Chappelle has his like white person voice? I almost like drifted into.
Do it.
No, but it's always like, well, you said all this stuff. Like, what do you do for hope? And it's like, well, I don't need hope as much as I need like honesty. I don't need hope. I'm not fueled by hope. My hope relies on the fact that with honesty and sincerity and earnestness and clarity, at the intersection of all those things, there might be something hopeful I can latch onto, but I don't need it.
Right.
I don't think hope has gotten America very far, right?
Wow. Are you guys okay? The whole
Thank
room
you,
just
one
went,
person.
"Oh."
Well, I think people were so upset that which I'm not saying the people upset were wrong. People were upset that the Green Book won Best Picture, right? Yeah. But how could the Green Book not win Best Picture, right? In a country where like, I don't know, I can't speak for Canada, I'm speaking for the States, right? In a country where it's like more harmful to be called racist than actually being racist, right? The Green Book is the Green Book like is the movie for that moment,
Yes.
right? Because it relies on this idea of hope. It relies on this idea of like, look how far we've come. It relies on the idea of a country patting itself on the back for success it hasn't achieved yet.
Right.
And so that is, I think, where hope has kind of gotten the greater American landscape. This idea that to look at the past and imagine the past as some great distance that we've achieved beyond is all about the mechanics of hope and not about the mechanics of sincerity or earnestness, right?
I think you ruined Green Book for a lot of people in the room tonight.
Oh, you don't need to see it anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
You know how it goes.
yeah, you know how it goes. You've seen like everything.
You've been alive. You know it.
Yeah, but I do think that my interest is in sincerity in hopes that sincerity widens the pathway to what hope could look like. And I think that cynicism and sincerity are hand in hand. I do appreciate that I am probably more cynical than I should be. I don't think that like my therapist and all my friends and all the people in my life telling me that I'm too cynical are like making shit up.
Right.
But I also think that that's been kind of molded with some care in that I'm trying to, it's because I feel things so deeply, right? And so if I allowed myself this idea of the pursuit of hope, I would fall so aggressively into that it would cloud my judgment, it would cloud my vision, it would cloud my understanding of the world and what the world is capable of. And because I know that about myself, because I know that when I charge into an emotion, I am there all the way. I have to restrain myself, right? I have to allow myself some way out. And I've just chosen this one for now.
Yes. I was given a 5-minute warning like a minute ago, and I'm really mad about it, but it's fine. And so I'm going to ask a question about a thing that you put on Instagram.
I'm ready for. I love Instagram.
So you
love
were,
photos.
You were talking. You're talking about this book, and you're talking about how it made you a more internally honest writer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said was like, does anyone really care about this, through line other than me? Therefore, I have to cut it. And one of the
the
through lines
Dixie
you had to
Chicks
cut
thing
was the through line between
Everyone's
Q-Tip
asking about the Dixie
and
Chicks.
the Dixie Chicks. And it's like, tell the people about the
Yeah,
Dixie Chicks through line.
it wasn't. The weird thing is that it's not good. I think if everyone saw that in its final form, it was a very bad chapter of the book.
Okay.
Roundly agreed on as a very bad chapter. So I had, there's that meme from I think It's Always Sunny where the dude has all the like.
Yes, the thumbtacks.
Yeah, thumbtacks. It was like that. I was watching, it was a chapter after the documentary chapter. It was a chapter on the Tribe documentary. And for some reason, I had fallen into, right after I finished rewatching the Tribe documentary, I had rewatched Shut Up and Sing, the Dixie Chicks documentary. And halfway through, I was like, wait a minute, Q-Tip and Natalie Maines are of the same affliction. Which, I mean, on the larger scale, it makes sense, right? So on a large scale, a theory that I wholly believe, is that every group, within the construct of every music group, there is one person who has to sacrifice more than everyone else in order to keep the machine moving forward, right? For Fleetwood Mac, some would say it's probably Stevie Nicks. I would say it's a mix between Stevie Nicks and John McVie. Because did you know that You Make Lovin' Fun is about like the affair that Christine McVie was having? And she lied to him and was like, this is about a dog. And then he found that shit out and had to play the entire tour of Rumors. I don't know. So I think in every band, imagine your wife being like, yo, I wrote this song about a dog, we got this new dog, I'm hyped about it. And then you find out the song is about the affair she had with the lighting dude, and you gotta like sit and play bass while the lighting dude is like lighting you playing bass. I don't know. Stevie Nicks twirling all over the damn place. So I think in every group, sorry, I got sidetracked. In every group, there's like that person who sacrifices the most to keep it going. Slum Village had Dilla, I think, inarguably Dilla. Little Brother had Fonte, though some I think would argue Ninth Wonder. The Dixie Chicks, I think, inarguably had Natalie Maines, who, what's wild as hell about the Dixie Chicks is the thing that Natalie Maines said back then wouldn't even register now. Like if Natalie Maines said that today, no one would, it might not even make the news. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, or it would be like an afterthought.
As opposed to receiving death threats.
As opposed to like being banned from country radio, being like, and there's this great performance from, I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, there's this great performance of the Dixie Chicks at the Grammys doing Not Ready to Make Nice the year they kind of like got the apology coronation, when the music industry was like, oh, I guess that was kind of fucked up what we did. Here's a bunch of Grammys for the long road or whatever. And you can like really tell that Natalie Maines is like actively furious. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the performance, but you can actually tell, I don't know if you've seen other Dixie Chicks performances in that one, you can tell that she is just like actively angry. Like that she's there, that she has to sing this song, that like the country's still fucked up, that like after all these awards, no one's listening to her still. And if you watch the Tribe Called Quest Grammy performance from whatever year it was, you can see the same thing in Q-Tip. You can see the exact same thing. And of course it later came out that he didn't want to be there. Like when he was upset about the Grammy Awards snubbing them, he was like, I didn't want to be there. Like they used us. And so I saw all these through lines between these two people who had really sacrificed large parts of themselves. As when it comes to Tribe Called Quest, I'm a Fife dude, like Fife was my guy, but I cannot ignore the fact that Q-Tip sacrificed so much of himself to keep the machinery of that group going in the same way that Natalie Maines did. And it was wild to me that there was this arc at both of the points of their career where when it was all said and done, people were still demanding them to be on stages they just did not want to be on. Right. So I wrote this really long chapter about the two of them and then got cut because it wasn't very good.
I like this through line. I would have liked to read it, but it's fine. I'll
Yeah.
live. I also, when I first heard that you had a new book coming out, I didn't know what it was going to be about. I thought for sure it was going to be the 15-year anniversary of 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
Oh,
the
gosh.
My Chemical Romance album.
That's not my favorite My Chemical Romance album. I
But
actually
it's the
think
first one.
it's the second one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Bullets.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah. Bring me.
I apologize, My Chemical Romance fans.
I love. Wait, did a black person yell that out? Shout out to my fellow black golf in the house. Yeah, it's their second album. I think it's maybe their worst. Well, no, I think Danger Days was like actively bad.
Okay, that's fair.
But I think 3 Cheers. 3 Cheers is when people got hip to them because there's that weird video in the church with the corpse. Helena, yeah. But yeah, Bullets. You bring me your bullets. You bought me your bullets. I bought you my love. Was their first record.
Didn't know
And it
that.
had the doc. Did anyone see the documentary that went with it? The Life on the Murder Scene documentary. Wait, was that not? I hated that. I hated that doc.
Wait, why?
It just wasn't. I think that music documentaries. Thank you for pointing that out. Because I had no idea. I thought that was on the first joint. Wait. Did they have multiple documentaries? Is that the only one? Okay. Thank you. Yes, shout out to you.
You're the best. Thank you for filling the gaps.
This is
today.
why stand-up is actually good. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
sometimes in moments like this, like where would I be without you, My Chemical Romance stan?
Stan all stands.